So, I want to talk to you about persistence, resilience, and consistency. These are terms that I use interchangeably in relation to owning and running a business, being an entrepreneur. They're terms that I think aren't always fully understood. And I just wanted to draw your attention and your focus to these words and invite you to think about whether you are showing up in your endeavours with resilience, consistency, and persistence. So, I wanted to start by sharing a little story. I took myself out last night for a solo date to a concert that I'd booked a few months ago. The musician that I wanted to see actually manages and plays in a ska band called Bad Manners. But he's also a very talented musician in his own right. And he was going to be doing this concert. So I decided I'd go along. It was going to be jazz. I'm not really that sure how I feel about jazz. But, let's live and experiment and experience new things. So I've been really looking forward to it. And when it came around last night, I didn't want to go. I am quite introverted anyway. Introverted extrovert, as they say. And for the last couple of days, I've been feeling kind of low. Don't know why. Maybe it's something to do with my cycle, but I wouldn't know. I don't have periods. I'm on the coil, or have the coil, so I've no idea. But anyway, sorry if that was TMI. It's just been a bit flat and a bit low the last couple of days. Emotional. Maybe the moon is doing something. Is the moon in Uranus again? So I didn't want to go. And I was kind of beating up on myself a little bit yesterday anyway, because I felt like I'd wasted time. And it's this shaming that we do to ourselves, right? My children were with their dad, and I always feel like I should really capitalize on that time alone to get stuff done. And that is that patriarchal conditioning of we must be doing and busy all the time. And even though I'm aware of it, it's quite hard to shake off. So as it turned out, when I sat down to do something yesterday, I couldn't. I was paralyzed with negative thought loops, overthinking, and I just sat and did precisely nothing. And then I was kind of beating myself up for the fact that I had allowed my negative thoughts to take over and that I'd not done anything and rah, rah, rah. I'm sure you know how these shame cycles go. So not a great start, really, to the day. I ended up taking myself out for a walk in my happy place up in the hills. I actually tried to record this podcast from there, but I didn't have enough signal. I'm actually, just for your amusement, I'm going to let you in on something. I'm trying to pick up a poo whilst I'm recording this, and it's really hard, 100. Anyway, we've done it. So took myself off up to the hills, which should have sorted me out, and it did somewhat, but I just didn't want to go out. And I had to really lean into my self-coaching and kind of really force myself to go and not to just make it easy, not to just go wearing any old thing and what have you. No, I made myself go and choose an outfit, pick out a dress, put it on, put some makeup on, and take time in that self-care ritual. And I feel like the universe has been really showing me recently this, I guess, signs around this topic of resilience. And so it was really interesting when I arrived at this concert last night, which, by the way, was held inside a church. Right, hold on, I'm navigating a poo bin. Okay. I just felt so tearful. I kind of struggle sometimes with social gatherings anyway. I've always felt a bit like I'm there just observing through the eyes of Ginny, which actually, if you're into the woo stuff, that's exactly what I am doing as consciousness. But let's not go down that road. Yeah, I've always felt like I'm kind of very much a peripheral observer, just sort of seeing what's happening. And yeah, so the concert started. I suddenly panicked because it was bring your own booze, this thing. Ooh, I'm walking into a bush. Come on, Twig. It was bring your own booze, and I'm surrounded by the seniors of Shrewsbury who are all getting absolutely sozzled. They know how to put it away where I live, I'm telling you now. And at a time I'm sitting there, I'm just about 200 days sober, I think. And I'm sitting there and my old pattern is like tapping on my head from the inside, trying to get my attention, trying to get me to indulge it, trying to get me to say fuck it and numb out these feelings that I'm feeling. These feelings of feeling depressed, not wanting to be out, then going out and feeling like an outsider, feeling disconnected. That's a really common one for me, feeling disconnected, feeling this sort of aching loneliness. Yeah, fuck it, just go, get up, go find a shop, just join in. And fortunately it was only a very fleeting thought, but it was definitely there. And so I had to just turn and acknowledge my feelings, face my feelings, sit with my feelings. And I actually sat there. I'm about 6 or 8 rows back from the musicians, and I've got tears streaming down my face as I really feel into these feelings. And I'm sitting with a couple of complete strangers, and I just don't even care. I'm just, I think they just thought that I was really enjoying the jazz. And I just let the tears slide and feel into all this. And on the drive home, I think, gosh, how far I've come that I can sit through there, because the old me would have run away, would have numbed, would have done anything to avoid feeling those feelings and acknowledging my humanness. So how far I've come, how resilient I'm being. And this morning I opened Instagram, and there's an Instagram post from Jack Cotterill, who organised this concert. And he's talking about how about a month ago he was really worried because he'd taken a big risk. This is an Abbey. It's a big venue, no doubt fairly expensive to hire. And he didn't have the ticket sales. And, he was shitting himself, thinking, I've made a really big mistake with this. I'm not going to be able to shift the tickets. But he'd publicised it, he'd booked the venue, and he had no other choice than to make this happen. So he got off his butt and he literally took to his feet and walked hours and hours, days and days, miles and miles, handing out flyers for this concert, asking local businesses to put them up, getting on his social media, whatever it takes, right? Whatever it takes, that no matter what energy. And when it came to it, they sold nearly all of the tickets and it was a roaring success. But he had to lean into that without evidence. And I think this is such a key component of entrepreneurship, that leaping without evidence part, right? That persistence. The consistency is the thing that we have turned into a big boogeyman, and it's the thing that we like to bash, and it's the thing that we like to call bro marketing. I've done it myself in the past. It's the thing that we like to say we're not capable of because we're neurodivergent or we're parents or whatever other excuse. And they are excuses, right? Because we can always find ways of doing things that we want to do. And so, yeah, consistency is the smallest part. Consistency is basically showing up and performing in the same way over a continuous period. I think that is loosely the definition of consistency. And actually, in reality, what consistency looks like for most people is you'll have a day where you bring your A game, you have a day where you bring your C game, you'll have a day where it's totally just a freaking checkbox exercise and you just do the easiest thing to show up, share a quote or something really lame. And so it goes on. It's not linear, right? It's this wiggly line if you imagine it on a graph. But it compounds over time. And every time you show up somewhere, you're planting seeds. Somebody somewhere is seeing that you're around. And it's so noisy and so busy in the online space that if you want to sell your stuff organically, which means if you want to sell your stuff for free, in other words, by only exchanging your time rather than your money via ads, you can't expect to do that without showing up. You've got to be there every time your people open their apps. You have to be there because otherwise, unless you're really, really good at what you do and your copy game is really on point and you're super engaging with everything you post, you'll get forgotten. So you have to be there. But like I say, we've built it into this big boogeyman, and it's actually, of those three words, it's kind of at the bottom of the triangle. It's like an inverse triangle, and that word I would say is at the bottom, because the things that are more important than that are your resiliency. How tough are you? How able are you to withstand adversity, withstand things going wrong, get yourself back up and keep going, right? How resilient are you? Because that is entrepreneurship. It's a series of freaking failures until something works. That is just what it is. So that's super important. And persistence. My dad used to say to me when I was a child, "Oh, you're like a dog with a bone. Nag, 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 nag." I can hear him now. And I always have been very persistent about getting what I want. And, you know, you have to be for going after things when you've got no evidence. I wrote down what it says in the dictionary about persistence. The act of, God, I can't read my own writing. The fact of continuing in an opinion or course of action in spite of difficulty or opposition. I mean, that is entrepreneurship to a T, isn't it, really? Because you're constantly carving a new path. You're going without evidence. In fact, often you're flying in the face of evidence, because your evidence might be that what you're doing isn't making you money, for example. Because we tend to we tend to be a lot further along in our businesses in our head than we are in actual real life. And what I mean by that is, in our heads, we've been working really hard, showing up in all the places, selling every day, doing all the things, and nobody's buying. But in reality, you're showing up inconsistently. You very rarely talk about what you're selling. And if you do talk about what you're selling, it's so vague that people miss it, and etc., right? Because there's ways of showing up, and we tend to overinflate ourselves in our minds. So then the evidence is that it's, I can't do quotes, I've got my hands full, but air quotes, not working. And it's almost like a game of make-believe until it starts working. It's like you have to be this amazing fantasist and just keep going. And sometimes your family members will worry, especially if they're supporting you emotionally or financially. They don't want to see you taking risks and maybe following something that's not going to work out for you. And it all comes down to this need for safety. So yeah, persistence, you've really got to be. And I think I talked about this recently. A lot of the people who go into entrepreneurship are the oddballs, the misfits, the rebels, the square peg in a round hole, etc., etc. They're people who haven't been able to fit into quote unquote normal life, normal jobs. And so they almost have no choice but to follow this dream that they've got. And those people often have had a tough time because they didn't fit in. So perhaps, they're neurodivergent and, school and things like that was hard for them. Maybe they are just quite rebellious by nature, and perhaps they got into lots of trouble. Maybe they had skirmishes with the police. Maybe they jumped from one mini explosion to another, like I did. And when your life is like that, when it is kind of chaotic, when you're constantly landing yourself in this hot water with no real idea of how it happened to you, you have to be really persistent. You have to have this greater vision, a greater purpose to keep you going. Like, especially if your adversity has been really, really bad, especially, just to get real for a second, I've definitely had periods, particularly sort of post having children, with the hormonal changes that brings and postnatal depression that I suffered. I've definitely had periods where I've not wanted to be here anymore. I've been, not in a good place at all. And when you feel like that, there has to be something more to lean into, because it's very difficult to see your way out when you get like that. And I know, certainly from my point of view, my feeling, I'll never know obviously for sure, but my feeling is that the 2 or 3 occasions that I felt like that since having children, so over the last decade, my feeling is that I wouldn't in fact still be here if it weren't for the fact that I have those children and I just couldn't do that to them. And that's quite an admission, but it's how I feel. Like I say, I won't ever know if I'm right in that. How could I? When it actually came to it, would I have done? Who knows? But yeah, you have to have these skills kind of quite well honed in, I think, for entrepreneurship. And there is definitely, with all the information that we have at our fingertips now, and the explosion of short form video, platforms like TikTok, and also the misinformation as well that goes around. I think there's definitely this kind of theme, tendency in society to just be a little bit wet lettucey. I've noticed in recent times, and I've been the same way, I think we've had it so drummed into us under sort of new age feminism that, the patriarchy's really terrible and everything that the patriarchy stands for is really terrible, that we're now kind of allergic to hard work. We're allergic to being a boss babe. We're allergic to hustle. I built my entire brand around that. But actually, I think we're just looking at it the wrong way. It's a question of leaning into that devotion, leaning into that vision, leaning into that thing that you're going for, the thing that you're striving after, that better life that you're dreaming of, without attaching everything to it, making it the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, because it never is. And I have a really sad story I could tell about that, which I won't. But needless to say, I lost a friend who, a few months before he died, said this. He'd kind of, his dreams had come true, his hard work had paid off, he'd earned all this money. And I remember him saying to me, I think it was in a voice note, he said, "I can confirm that there is no happiness in or money doesn't buy you happiness. You can have all the money in the world and still be completely empty." And I really remember him saying that to me. And then when I got back to him and the conversation developed, he was telling me how empty and lonely he was, and now that he'd reached that goal, he didn't know what his life looked like going forward, etc., etc. And this happens to a lot of people. They make the money, and what happens is they either then lose the money, they're unable to hold it because having it doesn't equal happiness, or they just keep going. There's no off switch, rather like me when I was drinking. They just keep going for the next milestone and the next and the next and the next. So it's really important to build happiness from the inside out, build wealth from the inside out, which is kind of what I'm always saying about, like, making your ordinary extraordinary, right? Looking around at your surroundings in your in your urban little terraced house or whatnot, and being grateful for what you have, appreciating what you have. And sometimes it can be hard because you feel so disconnected from what you're seeing on social media. These amazing gurus and coaches who are so wealthy, and they're going live and making videos from these exquisite locations, these beachside villas, and with places with amazing views, and they're just having this absolutely amazing lifestyle. And it can be really difficult when you kind of look around at your life and the humdrum and the school run and whatever. It can be really difficult to relate to it, but it's essential that you work on building that happiness from the inside out. And that doesn't mean toxic positivity. It doesn't mean not feeling your feelings. It doesn't mean that you can't sit in a freaking abbey full of strangers with tears pouring down your cheeks. You should feel your emotions. You should be in all your humanness. If you want to cry in an abbey full of people, then cry in an abbey full of people. It's important and it's healthy to feel your feelings. And your feelings are just feelings. They don't mean anything, right? They're just an outlet. Even if that feeling is anger or whatever, it's just an outlet. Oh God, I feel like I've gone on such a tangent here. So yeah, what I wanted to do with today's episode, I guess, was just to give you pause to think. And I may have to go back and listen to this and see whether it's working to just kind of word vomit whatever's coming through me in the way that I am doing. I'm not really one for scripts and notes and stuff like that. I've never really perfected the art of, I don't know, I'm not a multitasker. But I'll go back and listen to this and see if I need to. And if you would like to comment on this podcast and tell me what you think, if where you're listening allows you to do that, that would be amazing. You can also send me feedback by email to ginny@theantihustleclub.com. I'd love to hear your feedback because this show is for you. I want to create a movement. I want to really help ordinary men and women create change in their lives, lasting change, and really bring the focus back to what it means to lean into your devotion and build yourself a lifestyle business that works with what you have, right? Not what you hope you're going to have when you're this 7-8 figure earner living in the beachside villa, but with what you have now, because it's who you are in the now that actually creates the changes, because it's all about who you were being and not what you were doing. Okay, so my aim, always with these meandering bimbles, is just to get you thinking. So I would ask you, as I draw this to a close in the last 5 minutes or so, can you maybe grab a sheet of paper and list out some ways that you are consistent or not consistent, resilient or not resilient, persistent or not persistent, and just get yourself thinking on these things. Think about how they maybe apply to you and your situation. And the last thing I want to talk about is, again, I just want to mention my free community, the Anti-Hustle Club community on Facebook. I'll put the link in the show notes. And also, I would be doing a disservice to you if I didn't mention the 21-day challenge that I'm running throughout May. It is a visibility and accountability container for anybody who is running, growing, or starting a business and promoting that business through either social media or just to an email list. So the container itself will be a month long, and the challenge is 21 days inside of that month. And the rules are simple: show up every day on social media and or to your email list. However, it's freaking pouring down. I haven't got a coat on. However, there's going to be more to it than that. I'm going to be encouraging you with gentle ass kickings and bags of kindness to lean into your devotion, lean into your vision, walk your edge, step outside of your comfort zone, do things that stretch you, right? And I don't know if I just said this because the rain's distracting me, but it's only $37 to get inside, and you are going to have close proximity to me every single day for a month. It is a freaking steal. The challenge itself will be gamified. There'll be bonuses, prizes. You can get your first bonus point immediately that you sign up. So I would highly encourage you to go sign up right now. And I am going to skyrocket your visibility and self-accountability throughout the month of May and completely alter the trajectory of your business through that month. And I promise you, I will deliver you that result. I will deliver you that transformation. I also decided on an ADHD whim that I was going to create an enormous playbook for you to go with this, which is going to be full of strategies for you to try on to grow your business. And these are all just ways of showing up, okay? All different ways of showing up that you can try on that doesn't feel like you're whoring yourself out all over social media. It doesn't feel salesy. It doesn't feel inauthentic. You get to pick and choose what feels good to you. And the only way to know what they are is to get your butt in the room. You know, if you want a seat at the table, you've got to get your butt in the room, and I've made it super accessible. Okay, so I will put the link to that in the show notes. I cannot wait to have you inside. That kicks off May the 1st. Again, if you have any questions about that, you can email me at ginny@theantihustleclub.com. I believe that is everything I wanted to talk about today. I really hope that you got some value from this little meander through resilience, consistency, and persistence. I hope it's given you pause for thought. And as always, keep going. I love you. You rock.